This is Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting, proudly sponsored by Empire Fight Store. Today I'm very lucky, joined by Adam Smith. So how have you been there, Adam? What have you been up to there, mate?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, very busy. Huge start to the new year for us here at Sky with some blockbusters coming up in February, and yeah, it's been an interesting time. Last 6 months working with Ben Shalom, our new promoter in the UK, and Todd DeVerf, my old friend from Top Rank. So we're building a new chapter in the Sky story, and we're very excited about the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, certainly. But before I talk about all the stuff you got coming up, I want to go back a few years when you kind of started working at kind of Sky Sports. You were doing a bit of a reporter role. What do you remember about that time? Because that was quite a long time ago, wasn't
it? I still feel like a kid, but I was a kid when I started, I guess. Not much older than yourself. I always wanted to be a commentator, and it didn't really matter what sport. When I was 8, 9, 10, I used to watch every sport and turn the TV down and, do my own sort of voiceovers and, reports, commentary on those events before my voice had broken. So I always wanted to do it. And I think I sort of tripped into boxing in a way. I always liked boxing, but I went to Tommy Hearns as my hero. I went to see Baron McGuigan fight Pedrosa at QPR when I was 13. Loved Chris Eubank, worked a bit with Evander Holyfield when I worked over at CNN in America. And I came back and I sort of arrived at Sky Sports, and it was a very different place to it is today. There are about 40 odd people at Sky Sports. It's now huge amounts at Sky on this massive campus we have now. And the head of sport at the time, a guy called Vic Wakeling, who was an absolute legend in these parts, and basically built Sky Sports. He liked boxing, and I told him a couple of tales of my experiences in boxing. He says, "Right, we'll put you over on the boxing team straight away." So I was sort of pushed into boxing before I could even say I quite like to do football or cricket or tennis or anything else. It was boxing, and then I fell in love with it very quickly, and I've never really got out. So yeah, it's been 28 years nearly at Sky. So I've enjoyed it. Started as a young junior, an assistant producer, then a reporter, a commentator, presenter, and then I took over the head of boxing about 10 years ago. And then I made a move about 18 months ago to the strategy team to work on the development side of boxing. And but I go back and join the team to commentate. So yeah, I enjoy what I do very much. Passionate about it.
Yeah, certainly. It sounds like you've had a few busy years then. I remember all the way back in lockdown, I think Sky Sports, they uploaded kind of a retro video. And it was a kind of documentary about Naz versus Kelly. I remember seeing a video of you where you're kind of walking around the street interviewing people about the fight. Do you miss that side of things, interviewing people? Because now normally you're the one being interviewed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do actually. I loved it. I think that was a really enjoyable part of my life when I was lucky enough to go on the road. I actually spent the first year or two at Sky with Baron McGuigan, and he was my hero, and I looked up to him, and we were traveling around the UK together in various gyms. And then I went overseas. I had a cameraman called David Kane, and the two of us and a few others joined us at times. We used to go to all the different parts of America and Puerto Rico and Mexico, and just had some wonderful times in all sorts of camps. I think I went to maybe 15 of Lennox Lewis's training camps, and inside, Oscar De La Hoya's Big Bear home, and Floyd Mayweather and Sugar Shane Mosley, and all that sort of stuff. Excuse me one sec, that's a call coming in. So it was great times. We spent huge amounts of quality time behind the scenes with all the great fighters, really, the likes of Mayweather, Roy Jones, Shane Mosley, the great late Diego Corrales, just Miguel Cotto. Very, very lucky, and some fantastic times. I used to love interviewing them. And the one you picked out, the Naz sort of couple of weeks in New York when he fought Kevin Kelly, was arguably one of the highlights, I think, of the whole journey. It was an amazing time. And Naz was probably at the peak of his powers. He just fought Jose Luis Castillo in Sheffield. Kevin Kelly had come to the Steel City, and they'd had a bit of an altercation after the fight, and that sort of carried on in New York. And yeah, it was brilliant. Just sort of going around New York, seeing pictures of him on the Times Square buildings, and going to check out the New York public to see if they'd ever heard of the Prince. And yeah, just great times. And the night itself was one of the best memories I think I've had. We had Donald Trump was there. I interviewed him at Ringside. Pierce Brosnan was there that night. John McCririck, the horseman, and it's just fantastic. Just a real buzz and electricity that night. 7 knockdowns in the main fight. Kennedy McKinney and Junior Jones, dished up a classic as chief support, and yeah, it was fantastic times. And I used to love those interviews. I probably got too close to Naz. We were I must have done 150 interviews with Naz. We were very, very close, and we had our ups and downs at times, but yeah, it was good times. Ricky Hatton, another one that I sort of went from the beginning, from when he was 16 all the way through, and yeah, special times being an interviewer. And you have to ask them the tough questions to the promoters, and that's fun but difficult. But yeah, I always wanted to become a commentator and do other things as well. So I think I probably, did as much as I could have done, or I wanted to do, with the interviewing. And yeah, now I'm sort of on the other side of the fence a little bit more. But that's what happens when you get a bit older and more seasoned or experienced, or whatever you call it.
Oh, okay. And you built up quite a good friendship with Johnny Nelson through your years at Sky, and now he was at that Calvin Kelly fight. Did you know Johnny then?
Yeah, no, I knew Johnny before that fight. He was already a professional. He'd lost 10 of his 13 amateur fights. He lost his first 3 pro fights. He froze against Carlos de Leon. That was a fight on ITV, and I didn't know him then, but I got to know him pretty soon afterwards. He was in exile around the world, really, and then he came back and he won, I think, 33 fights in a row. And I got to know him when he was coming again for that sort of second time. And I spent a lot of time up in Sheffield with Naz and Ryan Rhodes and Junior Witter and Isham Pickering and the whole sort of Brendan Ingalls stable, and Clifton Mitchell. And Johnny just stood out as someone who was very, very energetic, very bright. And also he'd been through all stages of boxing. He'd had his real setbacks, and he'd come through them. And I just felt he was the sort of guy that I'd like to get into broadcasting, because I thought he could appeal to, all levels of fighters, whether they're a 4-rounder, the journeyman fighter, the British champion, the elite fighter. And he'd sort of been through all those stages. And he's just a great guy. And we, we're pretty, well, we're best friends, and we have been for 25, 30 years. And of course, we sat next to each other on the Ringside set for a number of those. And yeah, I think when you just click with someone, you click, and we've always had that relationship. And yeah, he's a brilliant man.
Yeah, certainly is. I remember I saw Johnny at I think it was when there's the Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Williams press conference. I just walked in. I didn't know where the place was. I was like, oh, I saw Johnny walking down the street. I was like, oh, Johnny, do you remember the press conference? He's like, oh yeah, just in there, mate. Yes, he's a nice guy. But in your job, you had to travel quite a lot. What are some of the best places you traveled to?
Wow, I've been lucky enough to travel, especially west, a lot. I mean, great fight venues, Madison Square Garden, probably the ultimate, the Mecca, Vegas, a number of times for huge fights, which has been brilliant. LA, all around America, from places like Arkansas to Texas to, down to Mexico and Puerto Rico and those sort of, different countries and Caribbean islands. Then around Germany, Poland, Russia. So yeah, we've traveled a lot. France, got a lot of fights in Italy. So Spain. So I've been lucky enough to go to a great deal of places. What stands out to me? Wrocław stands out to me in Poland. We went for a Klitschko fight when he fought Thomas Adamek. That was an incredible experience. So that was pretty cool. Enjoyed Hamburg for Klitschko and Hay, although it rained hugely on the night itself. And we've been caught in all sorts of weathers outdoors in boxing. Remember the rain of Hampden Park when Tyson fought Savarese, and that one out in Germany, and and then we've had bright sunshine at Ringside sometimes outdoors as well. So, but look, I like going anywhere that there's great boxing, great characters, great stories. I love the York Hall Bethnal Green. It's the spit and sawdust of British boxing, but you know where you are there. There's the cafe over the road we always go to beforehand. You know where people are going to be in the venue. The same sort of characters. Lloyd Hannigan in one corner. You know where you sort of feel like that's real fight fans who sort of come home. So I love the York Hall, but wherever there's a good fight, the Manchester Arena where we're going to go for Carn Brook is a particular favourite. I think that's made for boxing. But the O2, and we've had obviously huge stadium shows at Wembley and in Cardiff, and so the UK has been fantastic, I think, in the last few years, but in the early days, a lot of great travel, especially stateside. So yeah, and some great stories, going around the sort of Badlands of Philly with Charles Brewer, and going to see Bernard Hopkins, where he grew up in the blue collar city there, going to New York and different parts of that, walking around with Junior Jones and telling me about the difficulties he had on the streets, and just, yeah, fantastic memories. And, running with Miguel Cotto and Joe Calzaghe and Lennox Lewis. And yeah, just Oscar De La Hoya in the Big Bear Mountains. We got pretty close, Oscar and I. And also Roy Jones, down in Florida, watching him train. I still think that Floyd Mayweather's the best I've ever seen in a gym or in a ring, in certainly this modern generation. Everyone says he's the best fighter of this era, and of course I agree with that. I think he's the best to lace them up since Sugar Ray Leonard, but also in training and the time that we got to spend sort of together outside of it all, it's just he's an absolute phenomenon. So yeah, some amazing memories.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to know where you haven't been. Is there anywhere you haven't been, Adam?
Yeah, there's a place I'd really like to go, and that's Australia.
You've never been to Australia, really?
No, and I've got some friends, a couple of friends who sort of emigrated there, and I've got connections, but I've never been out to Oz. I've got 3 kids. It's difficult, I think, and we've never been for Sky Boxing ever. So Costas Hugh came to us. There's been Australian fighters, but I've never actually been over there, and I'd like to go at this time of year, not just because it's summer, but because I adore tennis and I adore cricket. So to sort of go for the Ashes and the Big Bash and the Aussie Open would be pretty special. So I've said to my wife one year, mid-December to the end of January, if you want to come, but I'm going to be watching sport every day for 6 weeks, and I'll do that one day, hopefully.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad watching sport every day and then escaping rainy old England, especially in the winter, having a nice bit of sun. I also want to talk about a couple of things about the split you guys had with Matchroom Boxing, and now you're working with Ben. What's the difference between kind of working with Eddie Hearn and working with Ben Shalom? What kind of similarities and differences you've noticed?
Yeah, that's a good question again. Eddie and I were very close. We built a whole huge relationship at Sky, and we had 10 very successful years together. We spoke 3 or 4 times a day. He's relentless. He's 24/7. He's extraordinarily charismatic. So that was a strange year last year. It was coming. I knew it was, and it felt like a sort of long, drawn out divorce, really, which was a shame. Eddie and I, there's no hardship between Eddie and I, or Frank Smith and I, but and it's great to see them doing well on DAZN. But they left us, and it's business, and you sort of move on. But I've worked with Mick Hennessy and Frank Warren and Ricky Hatton and Frank Maloney and lots of different promoters over the years. So it was, I think the thing was, because Matchroom and Sky were so successful together, it was difficult for people here to get their heads around the fact that would there be boxing or life after Matchroom. But we had to sort of remind ourselves that we also built them, and we've always had the platform, which has grown and grown. We've had the reach and the scale, and when we got the backing that we're definitely going to go again, and in a big way, and we did the 2 4-year deals with Top Rank and with Boxer. People got their mojo back, and they wanted to go again. And change is difficult, but it's also exciting. And I'm a people person, Fred. I like sort of venturing into new areas and meeting different new folks. I really struggled during the pandemic, actually, being sort of more at home, and not lovely being around the family, of course, but not sort of getting out and being around sort of people and lots of different sort of sporting people. I love that. And I think with Ben, I was a bit skeptical at the beginning. I didn't really know him. I'd heard of him. I'd spoken to him a couple of times. But I was basically tasked as head of boxing development. Well, this is Ben Shalom. Off you go. You two are going to build the boxing strategy for the future. And so Ben and I were sort of thrown together. He's brilliant. He's very bright. He's entrepreneurial. He is charismatic and funny in his own way. He's not Eddie. He's very different. Eddie is obviously a born salesman. He's wonderful in front of a camera. We know that. We know Eddie's incredible strengths. But I think Ben, likes to keep himself to himself a little bit more. I think he'll talk when he wants to talk, when he feels it's right to. He wants it to be more about the fighters. He's passionate about boxing. He's a businessman, and he's young, and he's young enough to be my son or a younger brother, or certainly. And I think sometimes I see him as much brighter than me, and a real business partner. Sometimes I see him as a brother type figure, and sometimes I have to say, look, Ben, just be careful there or something. So I guess I'm very useful to him. I hope I am, along with John Wischusen, who's by his side at Boxer, who I've known for many years and knows the boxing industry inside and out. But I think I know the broadcasting side of it. I know the way that Sky built stars over the years. I know what I want at Sky. I know he's got the keys and he's got this incredible opportunity. And I think that we've worked together for 6 months. I've spoken to him just like Eddie, how many times a day, although Ben still calls me at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and, the house is asleep. And I have to explain to the kids the next day, why is he calling again, Ben? It's like, no, this is boxing. And, but I really like him. He's a big Liverpool fan as well, which helps. He's got a lovely team, a great spirit about him as a young guy. Sometimes he's much more mature than his age. So he's a bit of an enigma too. I really like Ben, and I love working with him. But he's very, very different to Eddie, and it will probably take. I think it will take a little bit. I think we've come very far in a short space of time, but I think this was always going to be a long journey. And I think he wants to take it as a longer journey and make sure that he's standing right there in 2 or 3 years' time. So it's probably a slightly different pace to when Eddie and I started working together. And but yeah, I still get that. I don't know. He's made me young again. I'm very passionate. He'll tell you that I never stop, and he can't believe that I'm still doing this at this stage and still as hungry as ever. But that's what I'm like. I love challenges. I'm bringing up the next generation. I can't wait to sort of try and develop Caroline Dubois and Adam Azim and all these guys and girls on Sky that we've got now, this new generation. And it's very exciting. And I'll always be as excited to go ringside and commentate on the fight now as I was back in the 90s. So, yeah, it's inside me. And I think it's inside Eddie, and I think it's inside Ben. And it's very difficult to shake. So it's tough to live with us, I should imagine. Although, my wife's an absolute saint. She's does a brilliant job with the kids, and I'm around when I can be. Ben will find that when he has kids, and Eddie has kids, and the wives at home have got to understand how much we want to work, and we do. And it's it's addictive, isn't it? It's a drug, and I think we want to do better and better each and every time. And it's difficult because fans look at you and they say, oh, why are you giving us that? That's rubbish, or this way. I promise you, we try and do our best day in, day out. It's not easy. We're in a business, and we work for Sky or for Boxer or for Matchroom, but we honestly, we do try and do our best for, we're fight fans, all of us. And I think that's the unity of everybody, including Frank and Mick and all the other promoters and broadcasters who do boxing. We're fight fans at the core. But yeah, I really enjoyed working with Eddie, but I'm really enjoying working with Ben.
Can you imagine, you just said there how long you've worked in boxing for. Can you imagine life without boxing?
Probably not. No, I don't think so. I love, if you told me tomorrow you're going to go and commentate on tennis, I'd love to do that. If you told me I could go and be in the football world, I'd love to do that. I think life without sport wouldn't be a life worth living. I am absolutely passionate about sport, from darts to snooker to horse racing to cricket to golf to I watch anything, and 2 of my 3 kids are really into it as well, so that's quite useful because we can all have that together. If you told me that I was going to go work at Liverpool Football Club, I'd absolutely love that. If you told me I was going to, I don't know, go and run Cheltenham or something in the horse race, I'd love that. But I think that's all sort of fantasy stuff. I think boxing has been my business, and I would find it very difficult to not be involved in boxing now. One of the best people I've ever known in boxing was my two people I really looked up to when I was young at Sky were Ian Darke, the commentator, brilliant commentator, and Bob Mee, our historian. And Ian doesn't work as much in boxing now; he's more football, but I think he probably misses it. And Bob, retired, and he went to do sort of other things and other interests, but I think it's very difficult once you're maybe it'll come to when I'm later in life and I'll just have had enough and I want to do other things, but I think I'll always still watch it and always still want to see how the young fighters are coming through. But yeah, life without sport, no.
Yeah, certainly life without sport, like in lockdown, it would be quite dull. And And boxing, how many kind of real, might be more of a personal question, but I don't know. I guess I work in the media side, but I don't work in the business side of it. How many real friendships are there in boxing, and how many business relationships and friendships are there?
That's another really good question. Is Eddie Hearn my friend? Was Eddie Hearn my business partner? You know, hello, mate. He always says, and I say,
Well,
hello, mate.
boxing, well, that's what I've noticed in boxing. Like
But
boxing amateur, everyone always says mate, don't they, at the end of the sentence. It's a normal Londoner
yeah,
thing.
but I count it. Of course, I count Eddie as a friend, and Frank Smith. They're friends of mine as well. You get very, very close, and I love spending time with them. And I suppose that's what it's about. If you really like spending time with people, Ben, after 6 months, is he my friend? Yeah, he's my friend, but he's my business partner and colleague. Ultimately, we are paying him money, and we've got to make sure that what he gives us is good enough. So there's always a slight difference. So once you're in business, do you have any friends? They always say, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Boxing enemies. I mean, we go to the Boxing Writers Club every year. I'm on the committee, and everybody talks to everybody. And you ask majority of people, they chat to each other about boxing, and yeah, there's one or two people who dislike each other. That's human nature. But I don't think boxing's a small world, and I think when something goes wrong or something, you need to come together. Paul Lee Noble, who lost his life, and all the promoters are coming together to and boxing does bring you together. So I think even the ones that aren't really friends, you've got a real respect for in what they do. But yeah, I think I'm lucky. I've got a lot of friends from my childhood and uni years and my West London life, and they love sport, but they're not my business partners. And I think that it's quite nice at the end of the day to go back to your family, to your wife and kids, or to go to your friends and have that slight escapism. But then again, it's great to be escaping into the boxing world again and leaving that behind. So I think a balance is right. And yeah, friendships definitely. And I mean, the amount of people. Okay, COVID's been tough because I hug everybody. So the amount of people I haven't hugged for a while, and it's the handshakes. People are doing this or they go like that. I just want to hug people. I'm that sort of person. I'm very tactile. I'm very warm, I think, as a person, and I like people, and I try and be nice. So ultimately, sometimes it's difficult, but yeah, you try and be friendly to as many people as you can. As close friends, I would say some in boxing, Johnny and Matt and Carl, and very close friends of mine, but they work more on the broadcasting side. And then the promoters, I say, yeah, they're your friends, but also you've got a business to do with them. So, but yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I had a 30th birthday many years ago. I've just turned 50, so 20 years ago, and I had friends, family, and fighters, and a lot of fighters came. So yeah, I guess they're your friends. I mean, Naz and I spent so much time together. Would he now say, yeah, he would say he made me rather than he's a friend of mine? Don't know, Ricky, and I mean, it's difficult, and then people go in different ways. But yeah, I would say that there's many friends in boxing as well as the enemies you hear about.
Okay, I understand. And which fighters went to your birthday party then, Adam?
Who came to that party?
Who forgot your present? That's a better question. Which fighters forgot your present?
Which will be a present? I don't know, but I remember being really excited when Neville Brown turned up, former British middleweight champion. I really liked Neville, and I didn't know he was coming. So the things like that are surprising. Steve Collins was there, but I mean, I don't know. I suppose as a reporter, you asked me earlier about that. I got very close to fighters then. I was very, very tight with Diego Corrales, and I was devastated when he died. That was one of the hardest. I lost a friend in a fire, a very good friend of mine, when he was 23, and that was devastating. But the only other time I've been in that similar sort of fashion was when Diego went, and we got really close. We're very different, we're completely different lives, and we sort of got thrown together through boxing. And he was just a great guy, and we spent a lot of time together. And he wore his heart on his sleeve, and I thought he was fabulous. So you do get close. As I said, I got very close to Naz, to Ricky, to AJ, to Carl, to Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor's a good friend of mine and a good friend of my family's. And when she went to the zone, that was tough. And does it mean I love Katie any less? Of course not. But we're not working with her now. We're not promoting her. We're not pushing her. But will I be obviously watching every step of the Amanda Serrano build up and fight? Of course. So yeah, it's difficult. I think a lot of them when they retire, Jamie Moore and Matt and that sort of era, Ryan Rhodes I saw the other day, great guys, and yeah, they're it's a fantastic community, the boxing community. I suppose I've got a special place for three areas that I spent a lot of my sort of younger years in boxing. One is Sheffield with Naz and Brendan Ingle and Johnny and Ryan and the whole stable there. One was Manchester with Billy Graham and Ricky Hatton and Anthony Farnell and Michael Gomez and the Robin Reed and the great fighters we had there. And then I'm a Liverpool fan, so Liverpool's got to be the other place. And I got very close to the Smith brothers and David Price and Tony Bellew, and despite the fact he's a blue. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm quite close to David Hay. I've known him forever, and I suppose the era of sort of the Eubanks and Bens more I looked up to. I worked with them at the end of their careers, so it was a bit different. But certainly the ones that were more my age that I've grown up with, the Nazes, the Rickies, that sort of era, the sort of late 90s. We all got pretty close.
Is it a really odd? I've always wondered this. Is there a really odd feeling when you see a fighter make their pro debut and when you see them retire and you're still working?
Yeah, I've seen that quite a lot, haven't I? I think what's really weird is I started when my first day at Sky was 2 weeks before Chris Eubanks' world tour started. So that's Chris Eubanks Senior. And now Chris Eubank Jr. is 32 and he's having a pretty defining fight on Saturday night. Who knows, might only have 2 or 3 years left of his career. So that's weird. Campbell Hatton is weird because you sort of meet him and he speaks like Ricky did when he was that age. And I knew Ricky when he was younger, and that's a bit odd. So you see Michael Gomez, his kid, and then, as I said, I bumped into Ryan Rhodes the other day and thought he doesn't look like a Spice Boy anymore. And it's like, I don't know, it is. And I think careers are short in boxing. I remember being there for Ricky's debut in Widnes Leisure Centre. It was on a Robin Reed show. Yeah, I didn't want him to fight after the Pacquiao fight, but it's not my decision. He did. He had the Shevchenko fight. He shouldn't have done, in my opinion, to do that. Maybe he needed to exercise some demons. It was horrible watching that. It's normally difficult watching the last fight of a career. Fortunately, two I'm very close to in the sport, in Carl Froch and Joe Calzaghe, went out on top, and that's always and Lennox Lewis. That's always a great place to go, but that's rare.
Oh, okay, that's quite nice. It must make you feel, but maybe a bit older when you see like the 5-minute pro debut and I win the world title and then retire. I must quite.
I don't feel old, Fred. I feel like a kid still. That's what I say about what
you feel 17, Adam. You still feel 17, 18.
I do. He says, I can't believe your energy. It's like I am. I'm up very early. I'm on it. I'm 24/7 in this business, and as I said, pity the people that have to live with me. But I don't stop, and it's what keeps me going. And I look up to my dad a lot. My dad was in retailing, and then he went and did a whole load of consultancy and different things. He's 80 now. He still works. He's still got various business interests, and if I ever get anywhere near that sort of age, I hope that I'm still working, because I think it's really important. It structures your life, and I'm passionate. I'm very lucky to have done what I've always wanted to do. So until they tell me I can't do it anymore, I'll still find a way to do something.
Do you admire Bob Arum quite a lot then, considering he's 90 years old and he's still going quite hard in the business?
Absolutely. Bob Arum, Don King, look at both of them. They call them the old dinosaurs. You never know quite what's going to come out of Bob's mouth. It's not always what you should be saying, what you want to hear, but he's still incredible for his age, and to be so active and involved. And I think that's right. Don King seemed to sort of go away after sort of running the sport, and he popped up again the other week, doing the Trevor Bryant fight, and you think they're still going, these guys. Frank Warren, what a survivor he is. The top promoter for so many years, still arguably one of the very, very top promoters, and he's had an incredible career. He's had his ups, his downs, but he's a survivor. And Frank always used to do, I don't know if he still does, I don't spend as much time with him now, but he always used to do the crossword every morning, and he said it just keeps his brain active on something other than boxing. And I just think that you see Barry Hearn as well, so sharp still. I think that's what I mean about my dad. I think those that work and continue to keep their brain activated all the way through are the ones that, you know, surprise you later on in life. And, you know, I think it's really important to have that mentality.
Oh, okay, that's quite interesting then. That's quite, you do notice that in boxing with a lot of similarities. And everyone doesn't really want to retire. No one really wants to stop. Everyone always wants to keep that foot in the door. But Adam,
well, there's also big egos in boxing, and they don't want to be seen.
I've got to say that, yeah.
They don't want to be seen as, you know, they've passed it, whatever. And it's like, you know, suddenly it's like Ben comes on and goes, you know, Eddie's an old man now, and it's, you know, it's funny, isn't it? It's cyclical. But you know, I tend to admire them all in boxing, and I think that, you know, every promoter, manager, trainer, they try and carve their own niche. They do very well. I look up someone like, I think my mate Dave Colwell, for example. He's been a fighter. I remember him fighting many times. He was a manager, a trainer, a promoter. He's done a bit of everything, and I think that's great. You know, I think what it is, it's that boxing's at the core. You know, Matt Macklin and I are close. We speak a lot, and you know, I just can't get enough of talking about a fight or talking about, you know, what's happening next in the sport, because it's not just obviously what happens in the ring; it's what happens outside, and 9 times out of 10, that's even more interesting and fascinating than, you know, than what actually is you know, develops in the ring. I always used to tell my team at the sort of first bell of a fight, that's where our work's sort of done. We build it up, and then it's up to the fighters. We can't do anything if they're going to give us a boring fight. They're going to give us a boring fight. If they're going to give us 10 knockdowns, they're going to give us 10 knockdowns. We can't influence that. We can do a lot before that. We can't actually. We can cover it the best we can. We can talk about it, commentate on it, analyze it, etc. But ultimately, it's down to the two gladiators themselves. So that's almost where that wonderful moment where the you know, Michael Buffer or Jimmy Lennon or whoever is doing the final instructions, and then they just go back to their corners, and there's those few seconds of just tension, and especially in a big fight, and there's nothing like that, and you just sort of let it breathe. It's just amazing, and you think, gosh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And with AJ and Klitschko, for example, we'd had the perfect build-up. We had the press conference at Sky headquarters. It was just phenomenal, so much interest. You know, traffic really stopped that night, and I just sort of thought, I just took it in, and I thought, I just hope it's a good fight. And then you get an absolute humdinger, and it just makes it where just the stars align and on that night. But we've been there at times where they haven't. I promise you that as well.
Yeah, I guess that was the icing on the cake after such a great fight. But only got one last question left. Throughout the lockdown, I remember Guy Sports Boxing are posting loads of different kind of old retro YouTube videos from Sky, and all the comments, you might have read some of them, they're all saying, when are they going to release AJ Mercer Miller, Gloves Are Off? How come that was never released on YouTube?
AJ Miller, Gloves Are Off?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I can't remember it, actually. Did we do it in, I don't know if we did it in America or in, we must know we did it here, I think, because we had the press conference in America where it got a bit nasty. And then we had the press conference here, I think, over at Scion House. And I think we did the Gloves Are Off there and then. Actually, there's been so many Gloves Are Off. I don't know. Should I go and try and find it in the vault and let you have a copy?
Yeah, that'd be great. I can post it on Fred's fighting. That'd be some good views.
He hardly covered himself in glory, did he? Old Jarrell Miller. What a shame, because I was actually really looking forward to that fight. Certainly the build-up of it. But there we go. Andy Ruiz steps in, and history's changed, and that's what happens in boxing. When probably the most fascinating moment I had before I really worked in boxing was when I was at Holyfield Bow 2 in Vegas, and the fan man flew in, and I just remember hearing this propeller noise. I thought it was a helicopter or something, and the guy crashed down into the ring apron, and the whole fight got sort of held up. He got beaten up. The fight got held up for 20-25 minutes. Evander Holyfield was behind, and then he was fitted down the stretch, so he came back and beat Bow, and the whole course of the heavyweight division, or the history, had changed because some lunatic in a plane who just crashed at ringside. And I just thought, you know what? I love drama and I love sport, and maybe this is the one for me. And there's been, I mean, I tell you, you know, there's been outside broadcasts shut down because of indoor rain. There's been lights out during the middle of fights. There's been wind or gales. There's been all sorts of stuff that we've had to deal with over the years. There's been Mike Tyson wanting to eat Lennox's children. You've had, I mean, it's phenomenal. And but you know, we couldn't do it without the fighters. They're just, and the access we get to them, and that was what was great about Ringside. We got them on the set. We had who we want. It was a who's who used to come through the doors, and that's what we're really lucky at. We couldn't get that in football or cricket or tennis. You know, we get that in boxing because they want to self-promote, and they've all got great stories because they all come from, you know, different backgrounds and different, you know, they've got different agendas and different ideas and different paths. And I just find the whole thing fascinating. And I think boxing always has been. And because it's got the sort of slight, the edginess to it, and people saying, oh, we don't like boxing, or boxing doesn't do itself any glory, there's too many belts, there's too many problems. I think that keeps everyone on their toes to always try and find the perfect solution, which is never going to be found. But as we're looking for it, we can enjoy the bumps, the obstacles, the roller coaster ride on the way. And I think that's why we're all still in it.
That's very true. There are a lot of kind of downsides to it, but those downsides kind of do create upsides. But Adam, do you think that will be released though? Gloves are up, AJ Miller. Everyone's asking for it. You'll be a hero on Twitter if you release that.
I don't know I'll ever be a hero on Twitter, not that one, but I think I'll tell you what, I'm in Sky now. I'll go and have a little poke around, see if we can find it.
Oh, okay, that'll probably make a few boxing fans happy. But Adam, thanks so much for your time today. It's great speaking to you. And where can people find you on social media at?
Cheers, Fred. Yeah, I'm just on Instagram or whatever. I tend to be. I'm on it a little bit. I promote a little bit, but I tend to be so busy on these phones, which we're talking on now, that I just try and concentrate on what the Sky business is.
Do you have a portable charger then with you the whole time then if you're on your phone?
Yeah, I think when Eddie first came to Sky, I think I had 3 phones. I had one for my family, one for my friends, and I think I had one for boxing and then one for Eddie. But now I've cut that back. But yeah, this phone has been absolutely battered. It's about a year and a half old, actually. I was asking about, because sometimes it just turns itself off. And when I used to do Ringside, I had my phone off for an hour, and Johnny was like, "Just relax, the peace of having your phone off, just enjoy." And then at like 7 o'clock when the show was over, I put my phone on. Johnny would be going, "There's smoke coming out of his phone. There's smoke coming out." And that's sort of what it's like. If you turn it off for half an hour, you miss out.
So do you think if your phone broke and Eddie Hearn's phone broke, consider Bob Aaron's, do you think there'd be chaos in boxing then? Be calamity?
I'll tell you what, everyone.
You should all do it on April Fool's Day, Adam. On April Fool's Day, you should all turn your phones off for the full day and see what happens.
Oh, blimey. I tell you what, Eddie wanted to turn his phone off after the controversial ending between Froch and Groves in Manchester. I remember running out the arena with him. I was like, oh my God, that was such a great fight. He was going, until it was stopped. He said, hard hats on, phones off for 3 days. But yeah, listen, the ups and downs. What we got was a phenomenal rematch at Wembley and a great story. So you never know. We've got Carl Brook coming up in 2 weeks, and we can't wait for that. There's going to be something that happens that night.
Do you hope for something to happen in that fight? Do you hope for something controversial, or do you want it to go nice and smoothly?
I don't want it to be controversial necessarily. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be the thrilling fight that we've all waited for so long, because people are saying it's a little late, it's too late in their careers. You know, we tried very hard to make it over the years, and we haven't managed to, but we've made it now. We never made Hatton Witter. Lewis Bowe was never made. They never made Calzaghe Froch. This one's been made. I want people to really enjoy it. So I'm really hoping, and having spoken to the fighters and knowing how much they want it, because it's all like World Championships out the window. It's all about the not losing to Khan or not losing to Brook. And I think that if we get a really exciting fight, I think that would just be fantastic for the fans that have waited for it for so long. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Not controversy, just a great fight.
Well, there is a rematch clause to it though, isn't there?
Look, it's all about February the 19th. If we get a phenomenal fight, listen, I'm all for rematches and trilogies, and we dance again. Because it's a story. It's about a story. It's about a journey, boxing. This is like Froch Groves in a way, because there's the bitterness. Also, 50-50 split on who's going to win. And it's easy. Khan, Brook. Who's going to win? Froch Groves. It's easy for people. It's a very simple story. And I think that we had that in the first fight of Froch and Groves. We had a great fight. And we had the controversial ending. There had to go again. This time, let's see. If it's a definitive ending, but it's a great fight, so be it. But if it's got a bit of edge to it and we want to do it again, I don't think anyone will complain.
Yeah, certainly. You got a massive month for February at Sky Sports sponsoring. But Adam, hopefully we'll catch up soon then, mate. Thanks so much for your time. It's great talking to you. Thank you.
No problems. Cheers. Take care.